You are now tuned in to the Dervech Real Estate Podcast.
Shopping center, multiple leases, multiple tenants. What's the average timeline? Retail investments are purchased based upon a stream of cash flow from tenants, from credit tenants, the value of which is in the tenant's leases, the stream of cash flow. Hi, welcome to our Commercial Real Estate Podcast. This is JEFF-DERVECH of Dervech Real Estate here. I appreciate you listening in with us. Today we have a great show. We will be discussing the world of shopping center investments as it relates to acquisitions and dispositions from the landlord's point of view, outlook for the sector, recommendation for shopping center owners, and the overall future landscape of retail. We're going to discuss what we are currently seeing in the space and ways to navigate the water as we move into the future. Our guest today is Alex Welch with Forge Capital. Alex currently serves as the real estate investment and acquisitions analyst for Forge Capital Partners. He is responsible for analyzing and underwriting real estate investments on behalf of the firm and all affiliated funds. Forge Capital is a diversified commercial real estate investment and property management company and owns shopping center assets throughout the southeastern United States. Over the past decade, Forge and its principals have executed on over $1 billion in commercial real estate investment transactions. Alex earned his Bachelor's of Science in Real Estate and Finance and his Master's of Science in Finance from Florida State University, go Noles, and currently resides in Tampa, Florida. Alex, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. It's great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. So, Alex, if you would, with the focus primarily on the acquisition and development of neighborhood and community shopping centers throughout the southeastern United States, mainly grocery-anchored product, what challenges have you encountered recently with seeking out new investment opportunities?
So I'll kind of start this off by talking a little bit about Forge Capital Partners and our private equity funds. We're investing in grocery-anchored shopping centers throughout the southeastern United States. We own properties as far west as Texas, as far north as Virginia, kind of everything in between. And kind of our target returns on any given deal for the fund is leveraged IRRs in the mid-teens. So with that being said, we're really targeting kind of light value add deals. And kind of as I've been looking for deals over the past year or so, I've noticed that there's been less and less of these light value add grocery anchored deals on the market. Mm-hmm. I think part of the reason being a lot of owners don't like to leave value on the table.
Sure.
Another reason being grocery anchored shopping centers are historically some of the most stable investments. So there's typically not a lot of value to add once they've been developed.
Sure.
So when we do see a light value add kind of grocery anchor deal come to the market, it gets extremely competitive. And that's really the challenge that we've seen over the past year or so is when you see, say, a Publix or a Kroger anchored shopping center come on the market and there is a kind of clear path to value creation, it gets extremely competitive. And often, more times than not, we get outbid because there's always someone willing to pay a little bit more for that value. That's extremely hard to find nowadays. So that's really one of the challenges I've seen over the past year or so. And just kind of generally speaking, grocery anchored, high quality grocery anchored product has gotten competitive in general. I think if you look at kind of retail shopping centers as a whole, over the past year, there probably hasn't been a lot of cap rate change. It's obviously very deal by deal dependent, but I think if you looked at high quality grocery anchored product, you would see some cap rate compression. And that's really where the challenge has been for us is finding deals at really favorable pricing.
Absolutely. So in 2019, I know you're constantly looking at new opportunities. People are constantly, they know of your group. They know that you guys invest in grocery anchor products, so they're constantly sending you stuff to look at. I think last time we talked, you said you look at a couple hundred deals a year.
Yeah. So I would say deal flow has been really great this year. I've probably seen around 700 deals come by my desk over the past year. Obviously, all of those aren't grocery anchored. Mm-hmm. A lot of power centers, some strip centers here and there. But I think deal flow has been pretty good this year. It's just the amount of grocery anchored product has been kind of tight. I would say of that 600 or 700 deals I've seen, probably only maybe 20 to 30 value add grocery deals were there.
Wow.
So,
and what grocers have you primarily, what grocers are you guys looking at as an anchor?
So kind of given our fund structure and the investors in the fund being institutional investors, a lot of banks, pension funds,
right,
things of that nature, we're really looking for high credit grocers. I guess the best examples of that would be your Publixes, your Krogers. We like Aldi. Once you get onto Texas, you have HEBs. So just your really high quality, good balance sheet grocers that have the capital to put into their stores to kind of expand, increase their market presence. So those are the grocers that we're really looking for.
And how is the competitive landscape relating from Florida as a state and looking at new opportunities, seeking out new opportunities based upon, you said Texas as being a state that you guys are looking at, some of the other states. How did the different states rank in terms of the competitive set? Would you say Florida's there as it relates to the nation?
I would say that Florida is by far the most competitive state. And really it has a lot to do with Publix. You know, they really dominate most of the markets around Florida, and that's what people are looking for. And I guess part of the reason why Florida is also so competitive is because a ton of people are moving here every year, you know? People are kind of fleeing the New Yorks and the Californias to get out here to Florida. Kind of the combination of strong demographics, population growth, and just quality grocers has made Florida probably the most competitive, I would say.
Absolutely. And you know, being favorable to the grocery anchor product that, you know, specifically having Publix as an anchor, we all know in the state of Florida, Publix owns a good portion of their centers, and they have a desire as of the past 5 years to own their own real estate. And a lot of their deals are doing right of first refusals and right of first offers and things of that nature. How do you view those type of deals and you know, when you're looking at those Publix opportunities that are coming to market?
So I would say as of more recently, it's been kind of harder to tell what Publix is going to do on any given deal, where they may have a ROFO or a ROFR. From what I've heard in the past, you really kind of knew going in whether or not they're going to bid on a deal. But nowadays, it's really based on their capacity. You know, if they're working on 5 or 6 deals at one time, they may not have time to underwrite the deal that just hit the market.
Wow.
That is a good looking Publix. At our firm, we don't shy away from any deal that has a ROFO or a ROFR. Sometimes you can get wind of what they're going to do from the broker, but you never really know. So we don't really shy away. We'll take them on, but if they're bidding on a deal, they're usually going to be the top bidder.
Absolutely. No, I can understand.
So it does make it hard.
Yeah. And so in the review of new shopping center acquisitions, can you discuss a little bit just about, you know, the process, how you look at a deal, how you kick it off from the beginning, and how you begin to analyze, you know, the investment?
You know, when a deal comes across my desk, I can really tell probably within first 5 or 10 minutes of looking through the package whether or not it's going to be a fit for our fund. Really, that's just kind of based on my experience with our partners at the firm. I know exactly kind of what they're looking for, which is quality grocery anchor product with some sort of upside. So when a deal does come across, first thing I look at is tenant mix, the market, and pricing expectations. Obviously, with our preference for grocery anchored, we want a high quality grocer to be the anchor of that deal. So once I've identified if it's a good grocer or not, you look at kind of the basic terms of that grocer's lease. What kind of term do they have left? What rent are they paying? How are they performing? Probably the most important part. What are their sales? How long have they been there? Have they put any money into the store? Stuff like that. You want to see that the anchor is committed to the site. Next thing I look at with the tenants is kind of the complementary tenants, the shop tenants around that anchor. You really want tenants that complement the grocer and benefit from the foot traffic that the grocer generates. I would say a couple of my kind of favorite uses any given grocery anchored center would be your service tenants, your nail salons, your hair salons, barber shops, stuff like that. Like to see restaurants in there. I think that's a use that'll never go away. You know, people always got to eat. And then I also like medical office, dentist offices, and then you've got kind of your more traditional retail, which could be your soft goods, your clothing stores, your liquor stores, your flower shops, stuff like that.
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny you mentioned, you know, restaurants and the small shop space. In the shopping center as a whole, I think over the last 10 years, traditionally, the restaurant used to compose 10 to 20% of the center, right? They wouldn't, typically the GLA would be 10 to 20%. In today's day and age, you're seeing restaurants occupy 20, 40% of the GLA.
Yeah, I agree that restaurants will always be around, they're always great to have at a shopping center. They also generate foot traffic that ends up going to your grocery store. So always have been comfortable with restaurants. You really just got to look at kind of their performance, Restaurants can be hit or miss. So you really got to get a feel for how well they're doing, which... there's a couple of different ways of doing that. If you can get their sales, that's great. But the best way to really find out is to go in there, talk to the owner, see how well business is doing.
And there's always the national credit, the Chipotles, the Paneras of the world, the Five Guys, all that stuff, and all that's great. But a lot of times it just comes down to operations. You know what I mean? Operators. And a lot of the centers that we're looking at, we're working on, it's we're looking at Yelp reviews of those individual, more regional restaurant operators, and kind of seeing how the community engages with them, because it's not necessarily all about just straight national credits. Can they make money in that space? Do they know how to engage with the community? Can they put forth a good product? Things of that nature. And that kind of, that leads into what I wanted to ask you about. Just traditionally speaking, if you could game plan out or draw up the ideal shopping center from a building orientation standpoint, from a square footage standpoint, and kind of a tenant mix standpoint, what does something like that look to you? You've looked at so many different deals. You've kind of seen what works, what hasn't.
Yeah, so that's a great question. From a kind of relatively risk-averse standpoint, if you want a deal that cash flows very well and is very stable, I think kind of my ideal shopping center would be a Publix anchored shopping center in kind of a major secondary market with about 15 to 25,000 square foot of shop space. That shop space allows you to grow NOI, but it also kind of limits your downside because of the quantity of it, You don't have too much where if you start losing tenants, you get a snowball effect and you're really kind of out of it. So on a deal like that, it's probably going to total maybe 60 to 70,000 square feet.
Sure.
And then on the tenant mix, like I mentioned, I like to have a nice mix of service tenants, restaurants, maybe some medical office, and even kind of your traditional retailers, they all have a place.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's interesting it's interesting the amount of small shop space that you reference into the total shopping center. And those tenants are, really important for the communities that they serve as well. I'm really bullish on the fitness use right now as well for a lot of that small shop space, being the fact that a lot of the Orange Theories of the world, or, these Pure Bar concepts or whatever. These
Soul Cycle, those guys, they're killing it, It really gives consumers kind of a different feel than your average gym. It's what kind of consumers want these days. They want something that's convenient and something that's different. And I think that's what a lot of those kind of fitness operators offer.
Yeah, and I mean, it's another cool component to that, speaking to the boutique fitness use. A lot of those concepts are subscription-based models where you pay $150 a month and, you're going to go 10 times a month or whatever. So essentially, you're getting built-in foot traffic into your shopping center. You can expect that consumer to come to that brick and mortar 5 to 10 times a year, or 5 to 10 times a month, or a week. So you could kind of you understand exactly, built-in foot traffic, which then in turn, that mom is going to come in, or that gentleman's going to come in and use the fitness concept, and then go next door and get groceries, or they're going to go next door and pick up their dry cleaning, or they're going to go next door to the, the salon, or, things of that nature.
Exactly.
So it brings synergy to the brick and mortar, which I like, built-in foot traffic.
Yep. I really think the complementary tenant mix can greatly improve your center. You just want tenants to kind of work together and they all do well.
Aside from the fitness space use, what other retailers have you seen doing subscription models?
So other retailers doing subscription models.
It's been a lot of fitness. I just was curious if based upon your experience, have you seen anyone else doing?
I off the top of my head, I don't think I have other types of retailers other than fitness.
Yeah, I'm sure they're out there.
You've got the direct-to-consumer brands that are doing subscription models, but those are typically strictly online.
Right.
Obviously, some of them are kind of making pushes into brick and mortar, which I think is important. Kind of part of the kind of omni-channel network that I think every retailer needs to have if they want to survive.
I agree.
But yeah, fitness is probably the best example of that being in brick and mortar.
Gotcha. Good deal. And next question I'm going to ask relates to kind of the sale process and owners that are looking to sell their assets. I mean, you've looked at so many different deals in the past, and you've seen kind of owners go out to market with an asset and then, and get dive deep into the details and all those things. What recommendations or tips do you have for shopping center owners that, let's say, are interested to bring a center out to market for sale that would help for a smoother and more efficient sales process just based upon your experiences?
So, I mean, right off the bat, you got to pick, if you're going out with a broker, you got to pick a broker who's well connected in kind of the asset market that you're playing with. Once you've chosen a good broker, though, I'd highly recommend providing as much property and financial information as you're comfortable with on the front end. I've seen deals fall through multiple times in due diligence when the buyer finds something that was not provided or communicated properly on the front end. No one likes a retrade during due diligence. I think that should be avoided at all cost. I think the more information you provide on the front end, it allows buyers to better evaluate a deal, provide a more educated offer, and it just really prevents a retrade during due diligence. So, I think
what type of items would you say? Just give some examples.
I think the most important things to provide up front would be obviously environmental reports, any property condition reports. I like to have the leases up front. I always like to review anchor leases before bidding on a deal. Public leases are pretty consistent, but there can be some things that you wouldn't know are there until you've gotten under contract, like a ROFO or a ROFR. And then really, I think the biggest thing is CapEx. If you can provide detailed reports on the quality of the roof, the quality of the parking lot, and like a nice history of work that's been done, then you're going to be more prepared on your budget when you go to bid on a deal, rather than showing up for the site visit and seeing that, hey, this entire parking lot needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
That's going to be about $500,000.
Right.
And we don't want to pay for it because we didn't know about that.
So it's got to come from somewhere, right?
So, I really like it when brokers provide everything up front and we have the opportunity to completely evaluate a deal. Some owners or some kind of buyers, I guess, they don't like to get into the weeds on the front end. They think it's kind of a waste of time. But, if it's a deal that we're really going to pursue, I'd rather have it all on the front end.
Sure, that's great advice, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. I think you need to be realistic on the conditions of certain items and prepare for that, and I'd rather kind of have all that information up front, even when we're working with sellers on those items, roofs, HVACs, parking lot, things that repairs and maintenance, things of that nature, so that we can best present it out to the market and talk with our potential buyer pool about that, and really be able to express the best picture for the deal.
Yeah, it's all about transparency. I think some sellers or owners don't like to provide a lot of information up front. They want people to kind of be committed to the deal before they give it all out. But the way I look at it is, if there's a problem with a deal, it's going to come up either way. I'd rather it come up before you get under contract.
Yeah, let's talk about it, hash it out before we get down the stream. I agree. Just generically speaking, what type of retail tenants or uses have you encountered that have been the most interesting to you as a landlord for either a center that you own or a center that you've underwritten? Maybe some alternative uses or things you're like, whoa, I've never seen this in a center before. Type of uses. What would you say?
That's a great question. And, kind of given our fund's mandate to invest in your kind of cookie cutter grocery anchored centers, I don't see a whole lot of kind of way out there shopping centers. But there are two shopping centers that come to mind that are local to Tampa that I see pretty often. One of them would be the Radiant Church at Britton Plaza.
Okay.
I would, before seeing that church, I would never have thought that a church and a shopping center would be that well ran and that good for the shopping center. You know, on any given Sunday, they're maxing out that parking lot. They're bringing a ton of foot traffic to the center, and it does really well. And I think the coolest thing about it is they backfilled an old movie theater.
Right.
You know, I just think that's a really cool kind of interesting use of retail space. Probably hard to duplicate, you know, but they have a good following, and it's been really good for Britton Plaza. And another deal that came to mind is a deal that we actually used to own in our first fund. It's the shopping center on Florida and Waters.
Okay, yeah.
Just north of the Hillsborough River.
Yeah.
You've got the Magic Mall flea market in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The story behind that is that about 90,000 square foot box used to be a Home Depot. Home Depot decided to build their own site kind of right up the road there. And it was prior to our fund's ownership, but it got backfilled with a flea market operator.
Yeah.
And I think that deal happened in the late 90s, and they've been there ever since. They're constantly expanding. The flea market does really well. It's your traditional flea market. They've got everything from clothes, shoes, jewelry, housewares, electronics. They even have groceries in there. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just kind of interesting to see that work in an open air shopping center. So that's another kind of interesting tenant.
Yeah, that's it. You know, the old big boxes that are now vacant, right? A lot of those spaces are non-prototypical any longer, and so you're seeing developers come in or owners come in and redevelop those boxes to where they're putting two tenants in, maybe splitting the box, or they're coming in and demolishing it all together and building small shop space, or they're repurposing that box with an alternative use that isn't retail. Maybe it's, you know, like you said, a church, or maybe it's a self-storage facility.
Self-storage is another kind of I guess deal that I would love to do. One of those deals, if you can find a Kmart box for $30 a foot and put a self-storage operator in there, it really pencils out really well. And there's actually a couple companies that have been really successful in doing that. That's certainly a viable strategy.
And then even medical office, going in there and doing, you know, maybe a hospital comes in and takes a box, or converting it to multifamily, we've seen. Just a bunch of really cool alternative uses. And on the small shop space, I mean, you got alternative uses you haven't had, you know, retail uses coming in that you really necessarily haven't had over the last, as of probably about 5 years ago. Medical marijuana, that's a whole different conversation. But a lot of those, you know, those uses are coming into centers. You got to be careful about those, just because of sometimes they are difficult to finance, and they're difficult to sell on the capital market side. It really does impact value. But even dialysis centers, you know, there's just a lot of interesting uses, and you always come across every couple of deals, you'll see one, you're like, wow, I haven't, a swim school, for instance.
Yeah. Technical colleges.
Yeah.
One of our shopping centers in Raleigh, North Carolina has about a 90,000 square foot technical college in it, and the college does really well. It's not your grocery anchored shopping center by any means, but you know, they're paying rent.
Sure.
And they're not going anywhere.
Absolutely. And what's your opinion on the future of retail, and what are some retailers that are doing great to change and evolve, and what are other retailers that it's just a matter of time before they become irrelevant? In today's day and age, it's all about omni-channel. You have to create experience. Exactly. You got to draw people into your brick and mortar. What are some retailers you're seeing that are doing a good job of that?
So, you know, I think the retailers that have really built out their omni-channel network and are starting to kind of see the fruits of that investment would be namely Target and Walmart. You know, you see the headlines on CNBC, comparable store sales up 4 or 5% quarter to quarter. You can see that kind of investment is really paying off, and it's really what it is they're providing convenience to their customers. And that's exactly what traditional, or I guess e-commerce does, or allows customers to do, is place an order, have it shipped to their door directly. So I think if retailers can offer that same convenience while having a physical footprint, and if you can have those two channels interact with each other well, then I think you are kind of set up to succeed.
Yeah.
It's really the retailers who aren't investing in that omni-channel network that probably aren't going to last unless you're insulated from kind of traditional e-commerce. I think a couple uses are more insulated than others, one of those being grocery stores. Obviously, kind of online grocery sales have started growing over the past couple years or so. But, you know, the majority of grocery sales are going to be in store for the near future, the foreseeable future, if that.
Yeah, if you don't take the approach to invest in your current unit portfolio, your existing portfolios, and strengthen that, and look at kind of, hey, listen, this is how we're going to grow this concept forward. Retailers are going to go. They're going to go extinct if they're not taking the desire and they're not understanding that the push is to change, and evolve. And there's plenty of concepts that have desired not to change and evolve, and whether that's, you know, due to leverage buyouts or things, you know, behind the scenes, things of that nature. But I agree with you. Target's doing a great job of creating a great experience for the customer. They're investing in their store base. They're selectively growing their store count. They're not growing too rapidly, and it's controlled.
Yeah, I don't think that any like traditional big box retailer will be able to get away from not having that online channel as well. Another kind of category that might be more insulated would be kind of your off-price, your heavy discount retailers. I tend to think that people are always going to be willing to physically go to a store for a killer deal. That's kind of apparent in Black Friday. You know, people still go out there in the middle of the night to go find some good deals. So they're a little bit more insulated, but you know, they've also got to kind of build out that network if they really do want to survive. And I guess examples of companies that obviously haven't been able to do that would be Sears, Toys R Us, right? Those kind of guys, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, the order online, pick up in store thing, so cool. I mean, even today I had to order some new, I bought a new bed and a new bed set and things of that nature, headboard and whatnot, and needed to buy bedding, right? So I wanted to, you know, buy quality bedding. So I, you know, looked online, went to Macy's, you know, I ordered it, or I found what I wanted, and it's either you can go and get it and it can be delivered in 2 or 3 days, or you can go pick it up in store today. Yep. So the fact of the matter is that it was shown that it had the product available at the store. I ordered it, I picked it up in store, and I got it that day. I think the ability to kind of vet out and know that that product is at store is huge, because no one wants to go to Best Buy or a department store or TJ Maxx and go to the store looking for a product to find out that it's not there. That doesn't work anymore in this day and age.
Absolutely not. I agree.
You know, they're not willing to go through that. And once they have one bad experience doing that, it stops them from going into brick and mortar to search for the products they want. They're getting smarter about how they're using their time in searching for products and goods.
Absolutely.
So we're both Seminoles. We both went to FSU. We both went through the real estate program. Go Noles. It was one of the best things I've ever done. You know, how did studying and graduating from FSU's real estate program help you prepare for your career in the shopping center industry?
So I guess for most, I got to say that the kind of educational and financial background that they provided has been really great for me. You know, they teach you really all the basics about analyzing a deal, kind of understanding the basic terms of commercial real estate. But I would say the most kind of beneficial thing that program did for me was really pushing me to go out and network with people and go and meet people in the industry. The program provides tons of opportunities to go to networking events, go on corporate tours, to go to ICSC in Vegas.
Right.
Stuff like that is just invaluable. And the connections you make at those events when you're still in school are just great to have in your pocket when you actually go out into the industry. So I would say that's the best thing the program did for me, was really like forcing you to go put yourself out there, meet with people. You know, part of the reason I have my job today is because I was willing to go out and do that. One of the partners at our firm is a huge FSU alumni, and I would have never met him had I not been in the program and gotten set up by my professor to meet with him, you know?
Right.
It's things like that. You really just got to be open to meeting as many people as you can, going out there and networking as much as you can. And that's really what the program instills in you. And I think you notice that when you go out to like networking events, once you are in your career, you see a ton of Seminoles at these events, probably more so than Gators. Right. Definitely more so than Gators.
Yeah, I totally agree. the FSU real estate alumni base,
The alumni
base is so strong, specifically in the Southeastern United States. And every year we have a trends conference back in Tallahassee, and everyone comes back for that. And it's a panel discussion, talks about relevant trends going on in the commercial real estate sector and things of that nature. They actually bring in some really high profile speakers, and it's a great event if you haven't been. When I was going through school, really happy I went to FSU. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And I went through the College of Business and I picked a real estate major because I looked at an asset allocation, and real estate was such a large chunk of that. And I figured, hey, listen, if I learn real estate and I educate myself on real estate, I can't really ever go wrong. And the first couple of classes I took, real estate, the legal principles of real estate, basic real estate law, real estate finance, real estate appraisal. I mean, it was invaluable experience.
You get hooked.
Great concepts, and the professors there were phenomenal. And that was my junior year, and I got involved with the Real Estate Society. And every couple of weeks we would have someone that has graduated from the program that was a professional come back to the Real Estate Society and talk to us and say, hey, listen, you guys are Seminoles. This is great. You guys are in this program, but this is what you need to do to enter the real world. They were so willing to come back and help and teach the students that were about to graduate on really how to get out there and start off in the real world, how to start a career with the right foot moving forward, how to build a solid foundation. And just a couple people that were influential: Beth Azor, John Crossman, Greg Machard. I mean, there were a couple individuals that I vividly remember coming back to FSU to do that. And the Trends Conference was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that willingness to help, it kind of gets instilled in you when you go through the program, and it makes you want to go back and do the same thing. Yeah, I'm sure you have plans to kind of follow in the footsteps of the Crossmans and those guys. It's really rewarding feeling when you can say that you've done that. And
the education's so good, and learning the core concepts is so good, but there's nothing like taking that information, learning that information, but then getting out in the real world and seeing how that's applied, and how what you learn and the experience and exposure. Because essentially it's all about experiences and exposure. You go out, you see an obstacle, you learn how to overcome that obstacle. You're like, oh, okay, I know how to approach this if I see it again. You can determine how to navigate those waters before you see it. You throw it in your toolbox, and then that's just experience. And so school's great, but getting in the real world and getting your hands dirty is awesome as well. And we're so lucky. I'm blessed to have picked commercial real estate. I love commercial real estate. I love the shopping center sector.
I feel like I got lucky kind of getting into the industry, going into college. I really thought of real estate as houses, residential, your classic, just single family homes. But once you kind of get exposed to the commercial side of the business and you see that there's a viable investment strategy there and that the product is tangible, it's something you can go out and see, you really just get hooked to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alex, this was a pleasure. You're a great friend. I love doing business with you. I appreciate you coming and talking today. I think we talked about some awesome topics within the shopping center sector, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Go Noles.
Go Noles.